Hey everyone, thank you so much for coming to today's session on communication and collaboration. We're blown away by the number of people who are just as excited as we are about providing a positive work environment that promotes open communication. My name is Izzy. I am the marketing and client care coordinator here at Lightworks Software, but I also handle a lot of our internal employee communication and wellness. And I love to work with all of my coworkers individually and as a team. And I want to ensure that they have the best work environment possible so that they can succeed not only professionally, but also personally. This webinar, we're going to go over so many valuable tools that even I utilize day to day within the workforce and outside of it. And I hope you guys find some great ideas to implement in your workforce and empower your employees. As a friendly reminder, we are recording this webinar and we will upload it to YouTube later today. So you'll get an email with a link to the recording as well as links to other valuable resources and a survey and the slides. Those that fill out the survey, we will enter you into a raffle to win a gift card. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it on over to Morgan, my amazing coworker and friend. You're up, Morgan.
Thank you so much, Izzy. Good afternoon, everyone. As Izzy mentioned, my name is Morgan Lacey. I'm excited to review the ways that you can help your team communicate and collaborate more effectively. So we have a wonderful group here today from different industries and different roles, which is always very exciting. So just as a reminder, I do my best to kind of keep things high level and general, just because we have so many different industries and different roles. But just as a reminder, I am always happy to connect with you at a later date to talk more specifically about your team. So please don't hesitate to reach out. But for today, I'm going to focus on the foundations of communication in the workplace and the things that we sometimes easily forget in the crazy and busy world that we live in. Communication and collaboration are essential elements of a successful workplace. They allow employees to build trust and transparency and create teams of people that share resources and knowledge. No matter the industry or the role that you're in, you know that without the ability to communicate and work together, that things fall apart pretty quickly. There is really no substitute for the effective communication. It's the foundation of every successful dynamic, personal or professional. Making effective communication a priority in the workplace can allow employees to build a sense of trust and confidence among each other, and with that, collaborate more effectively. Effective communication allows employees to work through conflict and challenges, providing a more positive and productive work environment. With that, you'll find higher morale and higher employee retention. If there is no expectation set for employees to prioritize effective communication and collaboration in the workplace, companies can struggle to grow. The confidence and growth that comes out of employees having the tools and skills to engage and collaborate effectively can drastically affect a company's success. So let's talk about the foundations of communication. The truth is, communication isn't always easy and straightforward. We're only human, so our communication has emotion, and that can sometimes complicate things. But if we prioritize things like empathy in our communication, it allows us to be more self aware. Empathy is what allows us to understand the perspectives, needs, and intentions of others. It strengthens relationships and solves problems. Without empathy in the workplace, leaders and their employees can struggle to collaborate. Our ability to recognize and understand others' mental states allows for a culture of open communication and collaboration. Our willingness to learn about others allows us to better engage and communicate effectively. Another foundation of communication is clarity. Providing clarity ensures that the message being conveyed is understood in the way that it was intended. This also helps with avoiding miscommunication and confusion, which are two things in the workplace that cost a lot of time and a lot of money. Making sure that communications are clear and concise can help streamline processes and ensure that there is a clear understanding, which is really important when taking into consideration things like safety or accuracy. When working in a dynamic work environment, communication can take many forms. So, having the flexibility to communicate with different personalities and on different platforms can be very beneficial. When leaders are able to accommodate different communication styles and preferences, they are better able to accommodate and collaborate and kind of engage with their employees. Being flexible when it comes to communication can be crucial in roles like sales and customer service, but it can also be valuable internally when working with a team of people. I know for our team, I have different platforms and tools that I use to talk to different people. Our CEO prefers email, while our head of development prefers communication over Teams chat. Communication in the workplace has changed a lot in the last few years. With people working remotely and all the different ways to connect, being able to adapt and embrace those new forms of communication is even more important than ever. Communication is such a powerful tool, and without it, we wouldn't be able to connect with those around us as conveniently as we do now. So, keeping these foundations in mind when communicating personally and professionally allows for a more peaceful and productive dynamic. Now that we've talked about the foundations of communication, let's review the foundations of collaboration. Anyone who has worked on a team of people, no matter what size, knows how important it is to have basic mutual respect for each other. A lack of respect can quickly ruin a team's dynamic as people aren't able to communicate openly and honestly. I don't think I'm telling anyone anything new here by saying that you have to respect people to be able to work with them effectively. But I think it's really important sometimes to remind everyone, no matter their role or dynamic, that everyone on their team deserves respect. Respect also creates trust, which is another foundation of collaboration. Trust is truly the foundation of a positive and productive working relationship. Trust allows people to share ideas more freely, which in turn can help foster a culture of innovation and collaboration. Collaborating with a team isn't always easy. In fact, it usually tests our patience and sometimes our sanity. But collaborating is essential in every workforce, and things like having a shared vision are crucial when communicating and working towards a common goal. Establishing a shared vision or outcome is a very important step when collaborating. Not only does establishing a shared vision allow team members to feel more invested in the outcome, it also helps align team members and makes it easier for them to coordinate efforts and make progress. Working together can be fulfilling and challenging at the same time, but setting expectations of respect and trust when employees are working together can help leaders foster a positive and productive work culture. Our next section that we're going to get in here to today is manager and employee communication. 86 of employees cite the lack of effective communication and collaboration and communication as the main causes for workplace failures, and that is via senior writer at the Expert Market. The manager and employee dynamic is one that can make or break a company's ability to grow. Having effective communication between employees and managers is crucial to the growth and development of the company. So let's talk about what employees and managers' communications should include. If you've ever joined the Lightwork team for a previous webinar, then you've probably heard me talk about the importance of open and ongoing communication. A successful performance management process is focused around open communication. It's what allows for fair and accurate ratings. When managers focus on communication being open and ongoing, it means they should be encouraging feedback, and by that I mean both the manager and the employee side. Employees are provided with feedback about their job performance from managers, and I think it's just as important for managers to be open to feedback about their leadership and communication skills. Without encouraging feedback from both sides of the dynamic, leaders and their employees can struggle to collaborate effectively because without the insight into their strengths and areas of weakness, they can struggle to understand what they actually need to work on. Having open and ongoing communication that allows for regular feedback can also be very beneficial to employees that are looking to grow professionally. There is so much technology out there today that is there to help us connect and communicate. Embracing and adapting to the tools that allow for more effective and open communication can allow for teams of people to work more efficiently. Anyone who has had a great manager knows that they take the time to have consistent check-ins to see if you're in need of any support or guidance. Leaders with intentional and consistent communication can create a dynamic built on trust and confidence. Open and ongoing communication is what managers and employees need to create a culture that is focused on growth and development. Again, I don't think I'm sharing any new information here today. I'm really here to enforce the basics of communication and talk about how they affect our ability to communicate and collaborate successfully. For example, it seems obvious that respect is required in communication, but if I'm being honest, I think it's the one thing that goes out the door quicker than anything else when there are challenges and conflict in the workplace. When you have a dynamic like managers and employees where one directly reports to the other, I think it can create a space that can allow people to feel as though they don't have to respect the people that report to them. I've seen it happen, and I'm sure that there are many others here today that have experienced something similar in the workplace. So I think that's why it's important to remind everyone who is leading people, not just managers, that when you communicate, it should be at the bare minimum respectful. And when it comes to the manager and employee dynamic, I think being genuine goes a long way. I can think back to every person I've ever worked for and how clear it was when leaders don't have genuine intention. And most of the time, I saw that in their communication. Another thing is that I always felt I could see how somebody had respect for someone else by showing how they viewed another person's time. Respecting people's time and being considerate of how your participation or attendance affects their job and timeline is important. If leaders don't want their employees showing up late to meetings, then they need to be holding themselves to the same expectation for their own meetings, no matter who it's with. When managers show employees the same respect that they're requiring from their employees, it creates a positive and forward focused environment that isn't in a constant power struggle. Respect and communication is a non negotiable, and that expectation should be set for managers when it comes to communicating with employees. Here's another section on the manager employee communication that I think seems like common sense. But if you have ever had a manager that just dominates every conversation, then you will understand why these three things are so important and how they can really affect your quality of life at work. Two-way communication is crucial for innovation and growth at a company. It's what allows every part of the workforce to collaborate and communicate effectively. When employees know they're able to communicate their ideas with a leader who is actively listening and respects their opinions, it can create a culture of collaboration. Managers should be guiding the conversation, which doesn't mean they decide where it's always going. It just means that they should be checking in to make sure that the conversation is including the employee's thoughts, concerns, or ideas. Showing employees that they are part of the conversation is a great way to motivate and engage employees in their work. Reflective listening is another great way to show employees that their managers have their full and undivided attention. Which, again, if you haven't had a leader who wasn't willing to give you their full attention, or you know what it's like, you know how frustrating and disrespectful it feels when somebody who you're talking to or trying to collaborate with isn't willing to give you their full attention. Work can be stressful and busy, and it's not always easy to slow down when we're communicating and collaborating with others. That's why it's important to remind everyone that successful communication is a requirement. So when work does get crazy and when we don't have as much bandwidth, we can make sure that we're at least covering the basics. So now that we have some foundations for communication, let's talk about how you can improve your team's collaboration. Effective collaboration is built on communication, and communicating clear goals, tasks, and expectations to employees when working together really sets everyone up for success. Assigning clear roles and responsibilities to a team that is working towards a common goal provides clarity and accountability. Setting a team of people up for success requires organization and planning. Communicating details and expectations are really the foundation of successful collaboration. Another factor of successful collaboration is a positive environment, and that goes for in and out of work. A positive work environment can really make or break a team's ability to successfully collaborate. It's what allows employees to be productive, creative, and engaged in their work. Collaboration often involves working with people from different backgrounds and perspectives, which can bring unique and valuable perspectives to the team. Creating an environment where all backgrounds and perspectives are welcome in the conversation can really create a strong culture of collaboration. If leaders want to create a team of strong collaborators, they need to ensure that they take the steps to provide the clarity and the positive environment necessary for employees to collaborate successfully. A huge part of how we communicate is affected by our self awareness. I think that more than ever, it's a requirement in leadership to be self aware. It's important to know our own strengths and weaknesses when it comes to communicating. We can't all do it perfectly all the time. So, things like understanding your own thoughts and feelings and how they affect our ability to communicate is really important. As a leader, you have to juggle different personalities and problems, and that sometimes can lead to emotions or reactions that aren't acceptable in the workplace. So, being able to control your own thoughts and emotions can be really important in the leadership role. No one is perfect when it comes to communication, but making an effort to be self aware so that you can work through those areas of weakness and advocate for yourself is really important, especially as a leader. Things like asking for feedback from employees can provide valuable insight into how employees perceive you as a leader and where you might need additional professional development to grow as a leader and a communicator. There is no shame in making a mistake. It happens to all of us. But being accountable and considerate when it comes to communication is really what makes a great leader. With that being said, I've mentioned leadership in this communication and collaboration conversation several times. But I want to take just a minute to talk about what I think are the foundations of leadership and communication. I have seen both sides of leadership, the good and the bad. And I can tell you from my experience with the bad leadership and their communication is that it wasn't authentic or engaged. And I think a part of that is leaders hope that their employees won't realize that they're communicating in such a oblivious and kind of inconsiderate way. And again, I don't expect any leader to communicate perfectly. They're only human. But there is no substitute for authentic and engaged communication from a leader. It's what retains employees and creates the next generation of leaders. Being a leader is challenging, and it isn't always easy to do or is doable to be transparent all of the time. But employees can tell when their leaders make an effort to be that way when it does allow for it. I have said this before, and I will probably say it again in another webinar, and that is be the leader you needed. And I think that's such a great reminder for managers. Communicate and give the same consideration to your employees that you wanted from your leaders in the past. There is so much to say about leadership and communication, but in the end, it requires those who lead to be intentional and authentic about their communication. As we start to get wrapped up here today, I want to talk a little bit about the different communication types and some tips that you can take back to your team to help with a more effective communication and collaboration culture. In person communication isn't always the most comfortable for everyone, and at work, it can add even more pressure. But there are a few things that everyone can do to have more effective and positive in person communication. The first one is to give the person you're engaging with your full attention. I know, again, that seems obvious, but sometimes people really do struggle to do that in person, and it can really affect the tone and the delivery of the message that they're getting without even realizing it. It's also important to be aware of tone and body language when communicating in person. Sometimes we're moving so quickly, we forget to slow down and make sure the message that we're delivering is being received with the intention we have for it. People read body language and listen to tone, especially when they're communicating with their leaders. In person communication can be so powerful and fun, but it's really important to be self aware and intentional about your communications as they can really affect the message you're sending. Over the phone communication is how a lot of people communicate at work. I know that I do a lot of talking on the phone. And just like in person communication, tone matters. And actually, over the phone, it matters even more because the person is not able to read your body language. So, giving them your full attention on the phone is important because just like any other communication, you should avoid multitasking. So even though people aren't able to see you when you're on the phone, they can tell when you're not engaged in conversation. So again, these seem like obvious things, but in reality, we all have so much going on, and I understand people want to multitask. But it's so important to actively listen and engage with people when they're communicating with you. It's these simple things that make a big difference. And I think they are things that are easily forgotten in our fast paced world. Email and text and messenger on every platform you can think of has created a world where we're all connected. It's wonderful and powerful, but also sometimes exhausting. So it's good to remember when working on those platforms that being clear and concise is important, and that more than anything, it's efficient. Review your digital communications before sending. It can save a lot of back and forth and confusion. I'm sure most of us here today work through email, and again, it seems like an obvious tip, but the reality is we're moving so fast, we forget sometimes. Written communication should get the same consideration. Make your message purposeful. Make your purpose of your message clear. Keep it simple and review before sending. I am just as guilty of this as anybody else where I have sent an email and I didn't read it before I sent it and it did not make any sense. So this is also a good reminder for me to review before sending because I definitely confused that person. So it's very important that we remember how powerful communication is in the workplace. Leaders should always be setting expectations, no matter the type of communication that employees are using, to make sure that they're being intentional and respectful when communicating. Keeping these simple foundations of communication in mind when working with others can go a long way. So far today, I reviewed the foundations of communication and collaboration, but now I want to talk a little bit about the tools that can be utilized by leaders to communicate and collaborate with their employees. Surveys are a wonderful way for leaders to engage with their employees and learn more about things like their professional development needs or even communicate their feedback preferences. Documenting employee performance is essential for accurate performance rating. So, providing managers with the tools to communicate and collaborate with their employees about their performance can be incredibly beneficial. Things like setting goals to provide clarity and set expectations can set managers and employees up for success. Light work performance allows managers and their employees to easily access and participate in the performance management process by utilizing these tools here to allow managers to have open and ongoing communication with their team. So, if you would like to learn more about light work performance, please feel free to reach out to us. In the follow-up email, there will be a link to my calendar. Please feel free to put time on there, whatever is convenient for you. Follow us on social media. I try to share articles about leadership and empathy in the workplace and all of that kind of stuff. And you can kind of see my education journey that I'm on. We do try to provide you guys with resources, but just like I talked about in this presentation, feedback is very important. So we really appreciate anybody who is willing to fill out a survey and give us that feedback. Izzy and I do work hard to provide you guys with kind of fun and quick and informational presentations that we hope you guys enjoy. We've come a long way in the last year, and it's very exciting to see how many people are excited about kind of empowering their managers and their employees to be better communicators and better collaborators. So if you guys ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can go to lightworksoftware.com, or like I said, there'll be links in the follow-up email. We'll also send you the recording, and you can find all of our past recordings on our YouTube channel. We have things about avoiding, rating complications and things like that. So feel free to check us out and reach out to us if you have any questions. Thanks so much for joining us. I hope everybody has a great rest of their week.